Hey guys. This is part 5 of What If Naruto Became a Spy. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start. Chapter 10. Four Precious People. Time to rise and shine. Kakashi announced, sweeping into the room that Shikamaru and Sasuke were sharing. Sasuke glanced up from the table he was sitting at, and then went back to packing kunai and shuriken into his thigh holster. Sometimes it amused Kakashi that Sasuke was so picky about everything always being in exactly the right place. Shikamaru grunted, opening an eye. He made eye contact with Kakashi before he closed it, and rolled over. A moment later, he started snoring. Idly, Kakashi wondered what Naruto would do with such an obvious pranking opportunity. Then Shikamaru half-heartedly crawled out of his futon, and stumbled to a stand, before yawning hugely as he stretched up. "'Kay, I'm ready to go," the lazy boy finally muttered. Kakashi bemusedly noticed that Shikamaru had changed before going to bed the night before. "Great," Kakashi said. "Well, it's time to escort Her Highness the Fire Lady to breakfast." He stepped back out into the hall where Sakura was chatting with Sir Jimmy about something inane. Mentally, he added a bullet to the list on the complaints he'd be writing to the Hokage. Trying to trap a ninja bodyguard with courtly word games was conduct unbecoming of a noble. Kakashi stepped in. "Well, if you two are ready to go, Shijimi-sama, we'd certainly like to get there on time." "Oh, of course, Kakashi-kun," Sir Jimmy said. "I'm sorry for delaying you. I know how important it is to be timely." Kakashi merely raised an eyebrow. Shikamaru didn't bother holding back a snort. "Ma," Kakashi said. "Well, you're the one that made reservations for breakfast, that's what I meant." He gestured, and the group set off down the road towards the trendy cafe Sir Jimmy had made breakfast reservations at the day before. Kakashi was amused to note that Sasuke immediately went to the roofs and hid himself. Kakashi smiled. "Our job is merely to protect you from horrible agonizing death, Shijimi-sama." Sir Jimmy was not one to be so easily frightened. "Oh, I have the utmost confidence in your ability to perform your duty adequately, Kakashi-kun." Kakashi beamed. "Why, thank you. It's nice to know you appreciate how dangerous ninja are." He paused, and made eye contact with Sakura. She'd understand why in just a moment, but he mused, just hypothetically, it's very possible that an A-class missing nin will appear out of nowhere and try to kill you. Sir Jimmy tooted. "Oh, surely that doesn't happen very often." Sakura was a bright girl, she knew her cue when she saw it. "I know," she said, drawing the Fire Lady's attention. "We were ambushed by an A-class missing nin on our very first C-class mission. It was very close, and all because someone was abusing their ability to hire ninja," Kakashi said loftily. "We forgave the client in the end because he was such a noble guy, but people who try to take advantage of the ninja they hire are universally hated by the villages." Sir Jimmy narrowed her eyes, and spoke, a little too sweetly. "Of course, but you were the ones that accepted the contract, after all." Kakashi shrugged eloquently. "Well," he trailed off, glancing off into the distance. He seemed to unfold from his slouch, ready for combat. There were some huge chakra presences lighting up, some familiar and some not. "Definitely bad news," Sir Jimmy spoke. "Is something wrong, Kakashi-ku?" "Quiet," Kakashi spoke. "Sakura. Sasuke. Get the client out of here." He formed a seal, and created a pair of Kage bunshin. One jumped toward the scene and the other moved to brief Shikamaru. "Who are those people?" Sasuke asked, leaping to run alongside Kakashi and Sakura, who had Sir Jimmy perched on her back. "Some jounin on vacation from Cloud and Stone," Kakashi said lazily. "Also the Tsuchikage." Sakura almost stumbled, before turning to Kakashi. "What?" Kakashi shrugged. "Well, I ran into a stone nin, and we decided not to have a death match." With that, Kakashi smiled, although Sakura was only able to tell because his one visible eye was shut the way it always was when he smiled. Sasuke spoke next, after dropping back slightly, allowing Sakura to take the lead. Curious, Kakashi fell back beside him. "Then we need to go back." Behind them, already distant, there was a huge crash from a collapsing building. Kakashi idly looked at his disciple. "Well, I sent Shikamaru to rendezvous with Temari, and it's better not to get involved in a fight between two groups that hate us more than each other." Kakashi paused, then, as information from his Kage bunshin came back. It was even worse than he'd thought. They were fighting Akatsuki, not each other. He barely pulled his attention back when Sasuke spoke, low and intense. "No. Motoko's around here somewhere." Kakashi raised an eyebrow at that. "I know you like her, but we have our own mission to complete right here. I'm not going to leave her behind to die." Sasuke hissed. Kakashi didn't like it either, but Motoko was supposed to be a smart girl with a lot of common sense. She was almost certainly hightailing it back to Konoha even faster than they were, but it would take a little too long to explain that to Sasuke in this crisis situation. "Sasuke," Kakashi said, "it's hard, but you need to believe in your comrades. Believe in Motoko's abilities as a kunoichi, okay? You'll meet her again in Konoha." Sasuke met his teacher's eye for a moment, and seemed to find whatever he was looking for when he turned back to watch where he was going. "Okay," he said, "so that's why you need to go convince Temari to leave." Kakashi told Shikamaru, "Why me, instead of another Kage Bunshin?" Shikamaru grunted. "Push comes to shove, you can make her, I can't." Kakashi nodded. "That's why. I don't want to give the impression I'm ordering a kunoichi from another village. That would be a violation of our treaty terms, as a matter of fact. You're her friend, so if you ask nicely she might actually do what you ask." Shikamaru looked at Kakashi. "We are talking about the same Temari, right?" Kakashi smiled. "You should trust your girlfriend more." With that, the Kage Bunshin cancelled before Shikamaru could say something witty. "Troublesome," he muttered instead, before setting off to find Temari. He hopped to a roof, scanning, and noted with some wry amusement that he found her immediately on account of her running straight towards the scene, against the flow of people that were running desperately away. "Oi, Temari!" he shouted, jumping across the street and landing on the building across from her. He had to shout to be heard above the din of the crowd. She turned, and grinned when she saw him. "Shikamaru, what's up? We gotta get out of here," he said, landing beside her. She shook her head. "I can't. I need to collect intelligence on what's going on," Shikamaru grunted. "We'll fill you in later. We have to leave now." Temari frowned, and moved through the crowd. "No, I have a duty as a Sannin to find out what's going on, you understand." Impatient, Shikamaru just grabbed her arm. "Just trust me, okay?" Temari didn't shake his hand off. "Just trust you, huh? What are you saying to a ninja from another village?" She turned, and grinned at him. "Alright, I wasn't too excited about trying to spy on crazy powerful unknowns anyway. But if you betray a maiden's trust she'll cut you to pieces with one jutsu." "Troublesome." Shikamaru groaned. "Stop whining," Temari said, "and hold on." With that, she grabbed him around the shoulder and leapt, swinging her fan around and opening it beneath her, pulling Shikamaru on behind her as they shot off, skimming above the roofline. Now that she wasn't trying to sneak up on people, she could use the less stealthy flight mode, leaning forward and controlling her fan while she kept her body half-turned to keep Shikamaru from sliding off. At least, Shikamaru mused as he watched the ground go past beneath him. He didn't have to run like a sucker, but it made him nervous that she still had an arm clamped around his shoulder. There was a pause as the group tried to comprehend what had just happened. The blonde kid that had been spying on them, successfully, Kirima sourly thought, had just charged off and they hadn't been able to stop him. He'd gone to save an enemy Jinchuriki from a group of 4 sociopathic S-ranked missing nin. At least the kid had balls, Asura decided. The 7 women, 4 from Stone and 3 from Cloud, were arranged under what remained of the veranda extending from what remained of their hotel. Each was busy assessing their injuries, getting prepared for whatever would come next. "You know what really bothers me?" Reiko mused, gingerly holding the side where Kakuzu had nailed her with a kick, right over the kidney. It was bruising severely, even worse than the stomach shot she had taken. Idly, she stuck her other fingers into her mouth to probe at the teeth he'd knocked loose. "What really bothers you, Reiko-san?" Kirima said, sounding a little too tired to play games. "When that blonde Naruto kid blew through that wall, and then he was talking with Itachi for a little bit." Reiko said. "He said to Itachi, 'What two-tailed cat? There's another demon around here?'" Reiko paused and shifted uncomfortably. "That's really bothering me," Asura groaned. "Shit, you're right," Okyute coughed, retching blood onto the handkerchief she was holding against her mouth. What do you mean, Reiko-san?" Tetsuko, who was hovering over the younger woman, not able to do anything now that Okyute was stabilized, not able to do anything for her own injuries, frowned. She leaned back, and spoke. "By saying another demon, that Naruto kid implied that he was a demon, or that he's also a Jinchuriki," Kirima said before Asura could say it. "That's not all," Asura muttered darkly. Reiko nodded. "Yeah, if Konoha had a Jinchuriki, what would it be?" Kamami sucked her breath in, worried. Okyute shivered. "You mean," Tetsuko nodded. "The 1, 2, 4, and 8 tails are confirmed as Jinchuriki. The 3 tails is loose in the mist area. 5, 6, and 7 are, accounted for. She grimaced. That leaves only the 9 tails. It's been suspected, but it's the only possibility, Asura grunted. We had suspicions after the last Leaf Chunin exams, when the One-Tails, Gaara, was defeated. We're pretty sure it wasn't any of Leaf's elites, so… Asura waved her hand meaningfully, or tried to. Her fingers were trembling badly, and she couldn't get them to stop. Plus, the 9 tails disappeared in Konoha territory about 13 years ago. Kirima closed her eyes. Everyone thought it was a double death with the 4th Hokage, but there were always questions. So yeah? Asura said. The blonde kid is the Jinchuriki of the 9 tails. She paused. Or that's what he wants us to think. Kirima cocked an eyebrow. Asura grinned. It could very well be insurance against us. A bluff in case we won. Doesn't explain how the missing Nin knew him, Reiko pointed out. But if they were hunting the tailed beasts and he was one of them, it would explain a lot of his dialogue with Itachi nicely, and it's not like we haven't already discussed the possibility that Leaf has the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. I didn't say it was likely he was bluffing, Asura huffed, just that it was possible. So the question is, what do we do? Kirima said. If you're trying to say we can't beat him in a straight-up fight, that might be true. Maybe, maybe not. Asura sighed. Jinchuriki are notoriously unstable, fickle things. They lose because of overconfidence, and aren't really dependable as ninjas. Asura grinned. Of course, this one seems pretty competent at infiltration gigs. I wonder if we were supposed to find out about it, whether missing Nin showed up or not. Kirima sat up, eyes wide. You mean, a threat by Konoha? Asura nodded, smiling. It didn't reach her eyes. If we think about what a Jinchuriki usually does, total annihilation would probably be a good description. For the 9 tails, total annihilation is probably understatement. The Tsuchikage shook her head. So if you also give that weapon the capacity to infiltrate a ninja village, and prove that it's capable of sneaking around even elite assassins, then a weapon that can be deployed directly into an enemy hidden village, and released against the home forces as a surprise attack? Kirima finished. So the Hokage was demonstrating that they have a Jinchuriki that can sneak into one of our villages and then destroy it. Asura grinned. Sounds about right. She shook her head. Man, what a scary idea. No warning, no prevention. You wake up and there's a Bijou killing all your cute little genin and massacring all your clans right in their houses. So we have to destroy it now. Tetsuko said. Can we? Reiko said, sounding honestly curious. If we were in top condition, maybe, but we're all pretty hurt. What can we do? Kirima sagged, deflating as she considered the question. I guess we have to see what the Hokage's game is. Asura shrugged. I suppose we've been outfoxed. There was a pause, and then Tetsuko groaned at her leader's joke. Niji tapped his finger against his sleeve, impatient to get going. Everyone assumed that his long, silky hair required lots of maintenance, and that he spent lots of time in the bathroom every morning prepping it. In reality, Niji rolled out of bed, dunked his head in the sink, and ran his fingers through his hair. Bam, he was good to go. He showered, if he remembered. It wasn't that he was unhygienic. He was just typically dirty for an adolescent boy of 13. Lee, on the other hand, spent 15 minutes every day gelling his uncontrollably wild hair into that tamed bull's shape. He doesn't even have hair anymore. Niji muttered to himself. What was that, my youthful rival? Lee shouted right in Niji's ear. Niji winced and turned to face his teammate. I said, but then he trailed off, mouth open. Lee scrunched his face, looking very worried. Is something wrong? Lee. Niji said, your hair. It's here. Niji gestured impotently at his own head. Finally, he managed to finish his sentence. Back. Indeed! Lee roared, striking a pose on one foot. His teeth went ping, and he flipped his head, showing off his newly restored bowl cut. But it was gone. Niji lamely finished. Don't question the power of youth, my youthful rival! Lee roared, gyrating his stance. That doesn't make sense! Niji protested. You can't just youth your hair back, Niji, Lee said, uncharacteristically solemn. He relaxed and stood at attention. Don't question the power of youth. Some questions have very dangerous answers. Something eldritch, something that hinted at the incomprehensible horrors that lurked in the vast gulfs of the Plutonian abyss shone in Lee's eyes for a moment. A subtle gleam that chilled Niji to the core of his soul. Then it was gone when Lee's teeth went ping. What woke Yujito was a spike of pain that dug into each side of her throat, interrupting the duller haze of suffering that always seemed to wash over her when she overused the power of the demon cat. She cracked an eye, fearing the worst after losing the fight with Haydn. She was being held bridal style, an arm wrapped around her shoulders, cradling her head in the crook of the right elbow, while the left arm was supporting her knees, and the left hand was supporting her right hip. Another jolt of pain in her neck, when he sprung off a roof, and the pain finished pulling her into complete wakefulness. She looked up, and saw a whiskered face wreathed in blonde hair, backlit by the morning sun. The face swam into focus, a lip being worried by teeth and blue eyes that darted around nervously, pinched with concern. He seemed to notice her attention, and glanced down. A smile spread across his face. It made Yujito think of when the sun broke between the clouds and illuminated a valley between the high mountains, and suddenly everything was warmer because of the direct sunlight. Motoko had made her feel that, and Motoko was just a lie this boy had made up. "You're awake? That's great," he said, not seeming to notice her dark mood. "HMN." She stiffly responded. "Anyway, I'll have you back to your team in a minute." Something dark passed across his own face, but it was gone almost before Yujito could notice. He continued to speak. "They'll have you fixed up in no time." "Believe it, whatever," Motoko finally said. He glanced at her, dismayed, but didn't say anything. He jumped again, and Yujito winced slightly as it jolted her neck. He noticed. "Just one more hop and we'll be there, okay?" Yujito grunted. Naruto frowned, not quite sure how to handle this new, sulky mood Yujito seemed to be in. Sasuke sulked like this sometimes when he lost at something, but somehow Naruto felt that teasing Yujito about losing to Haydn was exactly what not to do. He jumped again, mulling over what he was going to say next, and was interrupted from further conversation by the Sasuke speaking up when he landed in the ruined inn courtyard. "I can't believe you actually came back, kiddo. The day was going to be a hot one," he mused, once the sun got a little higher in the sky. Already there was an occasional grasshopper making noise. It would be a full-blown chorus by afternoon. The insects were nothing. They totally ignored people. During the Third Secret War, the Kamizura Byuser clan of Hidden Stone had genetically altered the native grasshopper population of the Fire Country to ignore humans, thereby reducing the chances that Leaf Ninja would detect an infiltration. The bookie was right. The guard was lax, only 2 teams of career genin led by a chunin each to guard the whole facility, plus support staff. There was nothing here to stop him from waltzing in and taking what he wanted. He closed his eyes and sank back beneath the earth, slowly burrowing his way towards the prison. Like most prisons in Fire Country, it was built on an artificial island that divided a river. The water was raw material for Suetun Jutsu and a preventive measure against the very kind of underground infiltration he was now using. Too bad for them that the Yanbi allowed the man named Shursui to easily do element combinations. Shursui converted some chakra to the water element, and melted it together with the earth element he used to tunnel through the ground. Rather than transforming them into a third, unique element like wood, he saturated the earth chakra with water chakra. The result is a cohesive mud chakra that can be used to bridge the moat. Shursui slid along underground, and reached the inner courtyard. This is where the executions are held. He could sense that it was empty. There was no one around. Shursui would have liked to come up closer to where Chuzoyama was being kept in the eastern cell block with other financial criminals, but to do so would require going through the hardened floor of the building. That would take too much time and leave too much evidence. So Shursui emerged into the late morning sunlight of a courtyard that stinks with the blood of beheaded men. Immediately Shursui cast a genjutsu on himself, obscuring his presence from sight and smell. He sneaked into the hallway leading up to the courtyard, past the offices of various prison officials. Shursui used a bizarre hybrid jutsu of his own creation. It is both ninjutsu and genjutsu, and combines shape and element manipulation. The effect is simple to describe, but very, very hard to achieve. With this jutsu, Shursui vastly magnifies his ability to sense chakra. It is a bit of a double-edged sword, since using the jutsu makes him very easy to sense as well, but against 6 career genin it's not a concern. It's the 2 chunin he worried about. He could sense the presence of the 8 ninja used to guard the prison. 3 were in the office block, 5 seemed to be on perimeter guard, and the last was over in the interrogation block. Bookie had heard a rumor in town that one of the chunin was an interrogation specialist. Shursui drifted into the building, moving as quietly as possible, until he reached the east prison block. The large, central prison bay holds the general prison population, and cells that can be individually locked radiate around the room. Like most countries, the Fire Country allows complex prison gangs to develop and subsidizes some of the prisoner management to those gangs. Manipulating at that level of political intrigue is expected of anyone who reaches a high enough rank to become prison warden. The leader of a block gang is the one who controls the keys to the secondary prison cells. They can be used for private rooms for the elite or for their intended purpose, punishment. Shursui sneaked to the east block and looked through the steel bar and mesh used to seal off the prison proper. The prisoners were lazing about, nothing to do between their morning and noon meals. Shursui and Bookie talked for 2 hours and couldn't decide on the best method for extracting Chizuyama. The twin problem of identifying and extracting his target is complicated because Shursui doesn't know what Chizuyama looks like or sounds like. Shursui isn't good enough to ensnare someone in deep genjutsu and ask them questions they won't remember. It was Bookie as the client who proposed the method, and frankly Shursui didn't have a better idea. Shursui dropped the disguise genjutsu and cast a henge to change his appearance. Now, it was Bookie dressed as a high prison official that stands before the east block. Silent as only a ninja could be, Shursui turned Bookie walked to the gate and regarded it. A prison official would have a key. "Yes sir, can I help you sir?" said a thug sitting by the gate. Wearing the simple white kimono issued to prisoners, he also had an armband wrapped around his left bicep. Without knowing the extraneous symbolisms, Shursui knew it identified the thug as the designated doorman for the gang that controlled the east block. "Bring me the prisoner named Chizuyama," Shursui commanded. "Yes sir, right away sir," the thug said. He scurried out, into the mass of prisoners interestedly rubbernecking. A bald and square-jawed man is hustled over to the prison gate by 2 more gang officers. The man has only been here a few days, long enough for the gang to work him over, still an outsider, to the east block. When Shursui sees the spark of recognition in the man's eyes, it's enough. This man is Chizuyama and he recognizes the face of Bookie that Shursui is borrowing. Shursui reached out and used earth chakra to guide fire chakra into the lock on the gate. The metal hissed and melted under his touch, and he wrenched open the gate when the lock turns to soft slag. "This face hired your rescue," Shursui said, and with a cross-shaped seal 3 Kage bunshin appear, 2 taking down the prison officers while the 3rd heaved Chizuyama over his shoulders in a fireman's carry. That bunshin darts out, and Shursui slammed the gate shut. In a few minutes, at most, these men will realize the gate isn't locked anymore. Shursui darted out, abandoning stealth for a quick extraction. He dropped the henge on himself, and his bunshin does the same. Shursui is almost in the courtyard when the first ninja appears. A woman in her 20s, Shursui can tell at a glance that she's one of the genin. He pulled chakra in his gut, and breathed out a huge mass of mud that swallows up her shuriken and then her, too. He formed the seals, and then dove into the mud, tunneling through it with jutsu, his bunshin dragging the target behind it. He popped out into the courtyard, and one of the chunin attacked, just as expected. This man is better than the one before, although odd. Everything above his nose is wrapped in bandages, and his forehead protector covers where a man's eyes are. Distantly Shursui wonders whether the man is Hyuga. The man darted forward, using taijutsu of some kind, but Shursui knocked him back with a raw blast of air element chakra and then the man is mostly swallowed by the earth. He's running out of time, the others are coming. While the bandage head is cursing him and digging his way free, Shursui is already diving underground, his Kage bunshin handing Chizuyama off to the real self before it cancels. Nearly 30 seconds later, Shursui burst out of the ground, and heaved his target out, and pulls the older man up and onto his shoulders. While Chizuyama gasps for breath from his unexpected trip underground, Shursui is already running as fast as he could towards the checkpoint in the next country over. The mission will not be successful until they get over the border. Shursui reminds himself that so he won't get sloppy on the last leg. Asura raised an eyebrow when the blonde kid landed with Yujito in his arms. She had been debating various pursuit strategies. Once he captured an enemy Jinchuriki, he would definitely escape. And that was disregarding the whole he got exposed as a spy thing. "I can't believe you actually came back, kiddo," she finally said. "I mean, what the hell?" The kid just gave her a strange look, like she was being ridiculous. "I said I would bring Yujito back, didn't I?" Ursura couldn't help it, she had to laugh at that. "Yeah, but..." She shook her head. "You know what? Forget it." She pointed at Karima. "You just give Yujito to Karima, okay, and then come over here and we'll have a little chat." The kid eyed her a little bit, and then he eyed Karima, too, before shrugging slightly and handing the sulking host of the Two Tails to the enfeebled leader of the Kage delegation, before walking over to where the Tsuchikage was standing up. "Let's go sit over underneath the veranda, okay?" Ursura asked, somewhat rhetorically. Then she added, "Or under what's left of it, at any rate." "Sounds good." The kid agreed, sounding way too happy about basically being debriefed. The Tsuchikage sat down, and she grimaced internally when it was a little too much like collapsing into a seat. Whatever that crazy genjutsu Itachi had used on her was, it had sure messed her up good. "So, she began. You probably know a lot about us, but I don't know much about you. Why don't you tell me about yourself? Okay, the kid said. Again, there was way more enthusiasm than most interrogation suspects had. My name is Uzumaki Naruto. My favorite food is ramen, and my favorite color is orange. I especially like miso ramen, and not just because it comes in the orange package either, but it's tasty. I guess my hobby would be gardening, well that and becoming a better ninja, of course. Why, just the other day This was definitely the first time Ursura had ever seen inane blather used as a defense technique in an interrogation. Sure, it was data, but it was so riddled with crap and lies, probably, that it was likely worthless. That Sasuke felt out of her depth. Debriefing hostile enemy mean was an art of itself that she had little to no training in, and she didn't think normal tactics would work on this clown anyway. Kid, Ursura said, holding up a hand. Let's keep it simple. Name. Village. Serial number. Rank. Naruto blinked. Okay, well, my name is still Uzumaki Naruto. I'm a ninja from the Leaf Village and I don't remember my serial number, although I'm pretty sure it had a 6 and 2 8s in it. And I'm a genin, Ursura nodded. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. She glanced behind the kid, to where Tetsuko was sitting, ready to provide a counter-questioner in case they needed to keep him off balance or something. So, why were you spying on us? He shrugged. Granny Tsunade wanted me to find out if you guys were gonna invade or what. Ursura wondered how this kid managed to land this sensitive of a mission if he just spilled his guts as soon as anyone even asked him. Also, Granny Tsunade? Who talked about their Kage so irreverently? She hadn't even gotten to the part where she threatened him for not talking. He was just merrily yammering away. I'm glad that you don't want to go to war with us, he continued. 'Cause, well, you guys would lose. Tetsuko stiffened at that, and Ursura couldn't help grinning. It wasn't a very nice expression. And why do you say that? Because Konoha ninja are incredible, he proudly exclaimed. I mean, you guys are all pretty good too, but you're just not as awesome as we are. Ursura wanted to break his teeth. Alright, next question. The Kyubi no Kitsun. He stiffened, and glanced at her out of the corner of his eye. It was all the answer she needed, and Ursura sat back, hiding her nervousness with a grin. It changed the entire nature of the conversation. It didn't matter if he spilled his guts. If he burned them all to crisps, it wouldn't really matter what he said to them. What's the point of training a death machine in interrogation procedure? Never mind, Ursura said, changing tack. And what does Tsunadeheim plan to do, if we go to war, Naruto shrugged. I dunno. She didn't tell me and I didn't think to ask. Then what would you do, Ursura said. If you were Tsunade, what would you do? Naruto puffed his chest, crossing his arms in an overblown display of assumed authority. That's easy. When I'm Hokage, we're not going to go to war. Ursura traded glances with Tetsuko. She nodded too, looking about as incredulous as how Ursura felt. When you're Hokage, Naruto nodded enthusiastically. Yeah. I'm gonna be the next Hokage. It's my dream. Abruptly, he frowned. But I want to protect everyone. Ninja battles are awesome, but wars suck. So I don't want to go to war with you guys. That sounded pretty stupid, but it was a nice sentiment. Ursura frankly responded. But you need to get your head out of your ass. What if Cloud over there declared war on you, What would you do then? Naruto smiled. Then I'd beat up their Kage to make them stop. That was the most audacious strategy Ursura had ever heard in her entire career as a ninja. The ridiculous part was it was actually a pretty reasonable idea. As a Jinchuriki, the kid probably had the potential to go toe-to-toe with the Raikage or with herself. A fight between Kages, betting the whole war on a proxy battle. But ninjas really only fought proxy battles for their countries, anyways. Ursura raised an eyebrow. And what if the Fire Lord told you that you and me, kid, what if he said that stone and fire were going to war? Naruto shook his head vehemently. He can't tell the Hokage what to do, he protested. The Kage's the strongest person in the village, in the country. Ursura shook her head, disbelieving. She knew she was getting sidetracked from interrogating this kid by his zany policy opinions, but how couldn't she ask? That's not how it works, kid. The daimyo controls the money, he pays the budget for the hidden village. You gotta do what he says, the kid frowned. Why? Tetsuko couldn't handle it. Why? The daimyo collects the taxes and supports the finances of the village. If you don't obey, he can threaten your budget, and you'll be ousted by the council. That's why you have to do what the daimyo says. That's not what I meant. Naruto shot back. Why does the daimyo control the budget, huh? What stops the Hokage from taking control of that? There was a pause as the two interrogators digested that. Overthrowing the daimyo, who provided funding, was the closest thing to heresy the ninja world had. The Mist Civil War had been sparked by a rogue faction trying to seize control of the taxes, and it had ruined the country. Kid, Asura said, but Naruto was on a roll. The daimyo, what did he ever do that was so great, eh? Just because he was born, he's on top? Naruto shook his head, and slapped his fist in his hand. The Hokage is the greatest ninja in the village. Out of everyone, they're the best choice, who trained every day for years to lead everyone. How does being born compare to that? Breathing a little heavily from his outburst, he visibly reined himself in. If the daimyo told me to put all my precious people in danger because of his own reasons, well, I wouldn't let him. And if I said you were going to war with the stone country, What if it was those that hide in the stones that brought war to your doorstep? Asura said. Naruto looked her in the eye, and said, the Kage leads the village. If a village goes to war, it's because the Kage said so. If the stone and the leaf go to war, it's because you, the Sasuke, said so. He leaned forward, eyes burning with intensity. If you threaten my precious people like that, I will personally hunt you down, and kill you right in your office while you're wearing your big hat. Asura held his eye contact for a minute, holding up a hand to keep Tetsuko from attacking him from behind. The kid was serious. Scary shit, man, Asura thought, and she couldn't help shuddering a little bit. To be fair, it was mostly from that genjutsu of Itachi's, and looking away when she noticed that his eyes, normally blue, had darkened, had reddened, and the pupil began to distort into a slit as he got angry. Then she grinned, and heaved herself to her feet. You're some hardcore shit, you know that, kid. She shook her head. Man, oh man. Although it was wrapped in platitudes and seemingly juvenile ideals, there were some ruthless sentiments underneath his words. His doctrine was simple, but subtle. By holding the enemy leadership directly accountable for their wars, by killing them first, he was ensuring that an enemy country would only start wars that the leaders were personally willing to die for. Asura had seen many that got drunk on power and viewed the ninja beneath them as expendable. Naruto was turning that upside down. He was viewing the lives of the foot soldiers, of the individual ninja, as more precious than the lives of the leaders. Something in that appealed to Asura, something in that made her want to believe in the kid. All right, kid, last question, she said, looking down at the kid. What if you started the war? Naruto looked up. I wouldn't, he said firmly. For the sake of the argument, kid, humor me. The Sasuke said. I would kill to protect my precious people, he said frankly. How can I expect you to be any different? Asura leaned down, so that her eyes were inches from his. I like you, she declared, voice alight with savage intensity. You've got balls, kid, and your heart is in the right place, and you're a lot less stupid than you sound. Hey! Naruto complained. I tell you what, Asura said, grinning. When you become Hokage, we'll sign a peace treaty, you and me, and the stone and the leaf will be allies. How about that? And with that, Asura held out her hand to the boy sitting in front of her. Sasuke, Tetsuko murmured, but Asura waved her off. I'd like that. I'd like it a lot, Naruto said, taking Asura's hand and allowing her to pull him up, so the two were standing. The sun was climbing in the sky. There was something making noise. It was difficult to tell what, exactly, over the throbbing that made it feel like his brain was trying to burst out of his skull through his temples. It sounded vaguely like someone was talking to him. Jiraiya just groaned pitifully in response. Boss, you gotta wake up, the voice said, an urgent whisper right in his ear. Jiraiya groaned again, and rolled over to get away from the voice. Unfortunately, he didn't remember how narrow his cot was, so he ended up rolling off the edge and hitting the cold, hard cement floor with a thud. Then Jiraiya whimpered. Boss, come on, this is important, the voice said again, somehow right in his ear again. Naruto is in trouble, blurrily, but with some urgency. Jiraiya cracked open an eyelid and made eye contact with the toad perched on his shoulder. Gamakichi really did look worried. Jiraiya managed to force himself to a sitting position, and ran his hands down his face. He could feel the stubble from not shaving, the tracks where drool and mucus had trailed down his face, and his eyes were still crusty and bloodshot. His senses of touch, hearing and sight were painfully sensitized, and everything felt like it was covered by grit. Jiraiya made another noise, this one somewhat more interrogative. Naruto got caught, Gamakichi said, distraught. And he fought with Itachi or something. Jiraiya stilled, looking carefully into the toad's eyes. They were serious. Jiraiya swore incoherently, and somehow managed to leverage himself onto his feet. Swaying, eyes crossing from sudden nausea and a flare of hangover-related pain, Jiraiya fumbled through some hand seals before disappearing into a swirl of ninja smoke with a pop that was somehow obscene. Moments later, the bars to the cell clanged as the guard ran his billy club along them, tapping each of them in turn as he walked along the cells of the village lockup. "Rise and shine, drunkards and vagrants, rise and shine," the guard shouted, rousing the various miscreants. The guard stopped when he got to the cell that Jiraiya had been sleeping his hangover off in. The cell was empty. "Oh sure." Yujuto sat sullenly, legs pulled up against her chest, arms wrapped around her knees. She stared dully into space as Karima sat across from her, frowning. Kamami was sitting at Karima's left, her face closed to emotion and rigid with pain, while Reiko had an indescribable look on her face. "So," Karima said, "this Naruto person is the real identity of a leaf kunoichi you befriended here at the festival." The leader of the Cloud team shook her head, voice angry and incredulous. "Just like that, you compromised your role and reduced your effectiveness as a weapon. I am very disappointed in you." Yujuto didn't say anything, except for the clenching of her jaw. She might have not even heard. "Answer me." Karima spoke sharply. "I apologize." "Karima-sama," Yujuto said in a monotone. Karima eyed Yujuto for a moment longer, before nodding. "This conversation is over. Understand that we'll have to reassess your dependability as a ninja after this." "Yes." "Karima-sama," Yujuto said, repeating the same studied monotone. Karima carefully stood, mindful of her own wounds, and moved to where the Sasuke had finished speaking with Naruto. She glanced behind herself. Kamami stood with somewhat less grace than usual, but Reiko met her eye before saying, "I'll be along in a minute." Karima studied Reiko for an instant before nodding, and proceeding to where Asura stood. Reiko stood, and moved forward to sit down next to Yujuto, mirroring the younger girl's posture, sitting with her legs pulled up and her arms around her legs. The posture made Reiko's side throb, but no matter. "When I was 13, my Jounin sensei was killed right in front of me," Reiko began. "It was during one of the border skirmishes between the Second and Third Secret Wars. We were on a relatively routine intelligence-gathering mission in the Rain country. We were deep in Rain territory. Our sensei had gathered the information we needed, and we got a little sloppy on our stealth on the way out. That's why we were discovered. The man who found us was already the rising hero of his country, none other than Hanzo the Salamander. Naturally, we still tried to achieve our objective, and escape past him into our homeland. Our sensei rushed him. Today, intellectually, I know that sensei was using a combined taijutsu/Raiten ninjutsu technique called Skyrider, and Hanzo countered with a partial summoning that augmented his body. At the time all I knew was there was a huge flash of light, and a dull boom, and then sensei was bleeding all over the place from where his lung used to be, and the salamander was standing over sensei with a frog-looking thing sticking out of his shoulder that leaked smoke out its mouth. We were only genin, but we knew what we had to do. We rushed him, and he took us down hard. Tozamaru was good, really good for a ninja his age, so Hanzo was a little less careful with Tozamaru, and cut off his arm with his freaky shoulder tongue. So there Hanzo was, standing over us, and Genii. He was my other teammate. He died years ago in a poison gas jutsu from a hidden grass chunin. Genii shouted something about why didn't he do the honorable thing and kill us, too. Reiko smiled, then, a crooked, complicated expression. I don't really remember what Genii said, to be honest, but I'll never remember the half-sad, half-exasperated expression on Hanzo's face when he said to us, "Listen, kid, don't spit on my kindness." Reiko was silent for a moment. I was really bitter for about 3-4 years. What the hell, kindness, he just killed sensei and crippled Tozamaru. Reiko paused, significantly. Then I learned more about tactical MO, and realized that Hanzo should have killed us all. Reiko flopped back, and winced when it aggravated her wounds. I guess what I'm trying to say is, kindness in the ninja world can look like cruelty, if you don't think about it. Hanzo killed sensei and ruined Tozamaru, true, but he also spared our lives when it was really not such a smart idea for him. So now we have this kid, this Naruto, who disguised himself as a kunoichi to spy on us, and in so doing lied to you about his identity. Reiko said. And he hurt you because his mission required that he deceive you. But his mission didn't require that he befriend you. Reiko snorted. And it certainly didn't require that he charge into the jaws of death and snatch you off those jagged teeth either, Sighing, Reiko stood up. Kindness indeed. And Reiko walked away. Yujito squeezed her knees tighter, not sure what to feel. Karima nodded to Kamami, who went over to stand with Tetsuko and guard the prisoner while Asura and Karima conferred. So, what do you think? Asura said, crossing her arms to hide the shaking in her fingers. Karima frowned. He's too dangerous to take prisoner, but it would be really good to extract what intelligence we can from him. Asura grinned. I say let him go. Karima raised an eyebrow. Asura scowled. Come on, think it through, it's obvious. If the kid doesn't report back, then Konoha will know we found him. They already suspect that we're collaborating, plus Kakashi's suspiciously convenient bodyguard mission, and then their spy doesn't come back. Asura shook her head. And anyways, we're already assuming we could take him. On top of that, I don't have anywhere in Hidden Stone I'd trust to hold a Jinchuriki, let alone that one. I imagine it's the same in Hidden Cloud, so just let him go scot-free. Karima said. Asura shrugged. At the very least it'll throw Konoha through a loop. And anyways, we can leverage it as political capital later. I can't take the risk of holding him. I might as well try and get some benefit, even if it's just holding something over Tsunade's head. Karima just shrugged her acceptance, and even though she had a sour look on her face, she kept her opinion of releasing the spy go to herself. Alright, kid, we're gonna let you go, Asura said. Finally! Naruto groaned, standing up. Tetsuko caught her Kage's eye, and saw something in there that decided her, because she didn't protest when the boy stood up. Well, it's been fun, Naruto said enthusiastically. I hope we get to meet again sometime. Only, not as enemies during a mission. That was probably too honest, but I agree, kid. Asura shot back. Anyway, take care of yourself, okay? It would be lame if you died stupidly and didn't become Hokage. I'll become Hokage one day and we'll all live at peace with each other. Believe it! Naruto shouted, pumping his fist in the air. Tetsuko nodded stiffly, not really wanting to acknowledge the kid but not wanting to show disrespect to someone her boss favors either. Okyu waves timidly, and Chigaku looks up and nods before laying her head back down on a slab of sandstone she dug up and going back into recuperative sleep. Kamami bows, somewhat formally, from where she was sitting against what was left of a pillar from the veranda, and Reiko doesn't look up from her physics book when she waves. Goodbye, Karima said, somewhat stiffly, and Naruto turned to look at Yujito, who wouldn't meet his gaze. He stays like that for a moment, face frozen, before his smile becomes softer, and the happiness seems to fade from it. Yeah, take care, okay? With that, Naruto turns and leaps over the veranda of the ruined hotel. The authorities will be here soon and Naruto wants no part of that. Yujito stares at his back as he leaves, and continues to stare for a moment after that. Yujito, Karima says. Don't go and do something you'll regret, Yujito. Reiko flips the page, eyes intent on her book. Don't stay and do something you'll regret more either. Startled, Yujito turns to look at the jounin. Reiko glances up from her book, and says, if you let it end like this, and trails off, leaving all the what-ifs to Yujito. Resolved, Yujito nods and without meeting Karima's eyes, shoots off after the boy. Karima rounds on Reiko, who reluctantly puts away her book and prepares to take her scolding like a woman. Naruto is at the apex of his jump when he gets tackled from behind. Startled, he turns his head and recognizes Yujito, who has wrapped her arms around his shoulders. He barely manages to land without skidding off the back of the building. Yujito doesn't exactly impede him, but she's sure not helping. He has to contort pretty badly to finish the jump. Naruto contemplates the 2 inches between them and the edge of the roof, as well as the restaurant dumpster that would have broken their fall if they hadn't cleared the roof. The dumpster is full of natto. That was close. He whispers to himself. It was, wasn't it? Yujito said. Yeah, Naruto says. Honest relief enters his voice. But, we made it at the last instant. Yujito squeezes his shoulders. I felt betrayed, Naruto almost says, then why'd you try to tackle me into the dumpster, but something stays his tongue. He pries Yujito off his shoulders and turns around so they're facing each other. He looks up into her eyes and is astonished to see she is almost crying and is hesitating to meet his gaze. Naruto looks into her eyes and realizes that, once again, he has no idea what she's talking about. I'm sorry, Naruto says. He sounds confident, but he's basically guessing. She smiles, tremulously. Thank you? I'm glad, it wasn't all a lie. Naruto screws up his face, frowning. What are you talking about? I never lied to you. Naruto pauses for a moment, and the emerging black look on Yujito's face sends him scurrying for words. Also the hands on his shoulders are beginning to squeeze more threateningly. Well, aside from the whole disguised as a girl thing, Naruto admits, but that was just for the mission. I kinda forgot about that part because hanging out with you was such a blast, you know? Yujito smiles. I'm glad. Friends? Of course. Naruto shouts. He would have struck the nice guy pose, but Yujito still had him in this death hug thing. Alternatively, he would have put his hands behind his head, but again, Yujito was in the way. He settles for settling his hands on top of hers. More solemnly, he meets Yujito's eyes and says, "You're precious to me, now." A precious person. Yujito blushes and looks down. You're precious to me too. That's great. Naruto says earnestly. The pain of being alone. I'm glad you don't have to feel that way anymore, but you're going to be going back to your village. Yujito says. We might never see each other again. Never is maybe a bit strong. Naruto says. Heck, Temari is from Hidden Sand, but she's at Konoha like every other week. Usually hanging out with Shikamaru, now that I think about it. I don't know if I could get away from Hidden Cloud that often. Yujito says. But I'd like to stay in touch. More hesitantly, she adds, do you think you could write me? Of course. Naruto says. My handwriting's not too good and Iruka always said I couldn't spell, but I can try for you. Thank you. Yujito said. I'd really appreciate that. Jiraiya has never felt more conflicted in his life. He'd gotten to Snow Country in record time. It wasn't just a land speed record. He traveled across about 3 countries using space/time ninjutsu. And he anticipated a pitched battle against at least Asura of 5 Bears and the Akatsuki duo of Itachi and Kisame once he got there. But then when he got there, Naruto was having some teary goodbye scene with a hot blonde kunoichi several years older than him. She was all over him. Jiraiya had never understood what Uchiha Mikoto had meant by saying sometimes you want to hug them and strangle them all at the same time. He also wanted to punch Naruto in the face. Or buy him a beer. That magnificent bastard. The Toad Sage groused. Once the kunoichi left, Jiraiya settled for tackling the kid out of the sky and giving him the noogie of a lifetime. What the hell was that about, brat? Jiraiya roared. God damn it, Erosen, what's with the midair tackles all of a sudden? Naruto roared. Well, you need something to calm down after being all love. Jiraiya shouted, still grinding his knuckles into Naruto's head as hard as he could. Meanwhile, Naruto managed to pull out a kunai and punch Jiraiya in the kidney with the ring. What are you talking about, I was just saying goodbye to Yujito-chan. Jiraiya kicked his de facto apprentice in the face while nursing his side. Stupid brat. Show more respect to your elders. Naruto rubbed his blackening eye rebelliously. Hard experience had taught him not to get drawn into arguments with Jiraiya unless he was sure he could win. Better to bide his time and get revenge by more subtle methods. Jiraiya shook his head. Right. Give me a quick report. Naruto crossed his arms and frowned officiously. Yes. I made contact with the target groups and found out that Stone and Cloud made a mutual defense agreement in the hot spring. But they don't seem to want to invade, which is good cause then I'd beat them up. Then Akatsuki showed up and kicked everybody's butts and I stared down Itachi. Then I blew off Haiden's head with Rasengan, but in retrospect I don't think that killed him. Jiraiya stared for a moment, unable to believe that but also pretty sure Naruto hadn't lied to him. I think your debriefing with Tsunade is going to take a while. Are you sure that was wise? Sachikage-sama. Tetsuko said, voice lacking in any inflection that would imply she disapproved. Was what wise? Asura said, eyes forward as the two waited for Okyo to report back. They were taking it slow and careful on the trip back to the Stone Country, promising a treaty to the leaf like that? Tetsuko said. We've been their enemies for a long time. Friends today, enemies tomorrow. Asura quoted. She didn't have to finish. The corollary of that famous saying was, of course, enemies today, friends tomorrow. Besides, that Sachikage continued, I offered a peace deal to him, contingent on him becoming Hokage, no one else. And if the Raikage finds out? Tetsuko asked. There were only the 3 of us. Asura responded quietly. And I doubt that blonde bastard will say anything. I would never. Tetsuko hissed. I wasn't questioning your loyalty. Asura said. But frankly, I'm pretty sure the Raikage would have done the same thing. The Sachikage sat up and rubbed her face. Listen. I'm used to thinking big, thinking ambitious. It's part of being Kage, of reaching for the top, you know? Asura leaned forward and looked her second in command right in the eye. He said some very interesting things about the Kage as the leader of the country. Misbotched their chance, but if we, the other villages, all agreed to go at the same time, well, Tetsuko said. You mean? Asura grunted. Yeah, no more was said. Chapter 11 Denuma. I'll kill you! Naruto hissed. Ha ha ha! Jiraiya laughed pompously, dancing around the roof holding his notebook over his head. You should be proud you were awesome enough to inspire a whole volume of Ika Ika. Naruto found himself wishing, again, that he'd destroyed the notebook when he'd found it instead of shouting about Jiraiya turning everything Naruto did into something creepy. Naruto wasn't dim. Maybe he wasn't smart like Shikamaru, but he wasn't stupid. Ika Ika espionage was about his latest mission, and he didn't want to be the hero of a pervy book. Well, he didn't want to be the hero of a pervy book written by the freaky old toad sage. I'll kill you! Naruto reiterated. With that, he began doing hand seals. Jiraiya was curious. He knew Naruto had learned some genjutsu, and was apparently going to use his new skills on him. It probably would be pretty easy to break out of. Naruto knew Jiraiya would be able to break out of any genjutsu Naruto could put him in. So Naruto decided to do something more dependable than a regular type of genjutsu. Instead, Naruto would use something Jiraiya wouldn't be able to bring himself out of. Sexy no Jutsu revised. Sexy, sexy world. Naruto shouted, drawing out looks from the passers-by that had before been studiously ignoring the two arguing loudly on a rooftop. The sexy, sexy world was a variation of the what you see is what you get Naruto had used on Haiden. It drew out the target's most perverted fantasies. It was an incredibly obvious genjutsu, but on the other hand Naruto doubted Jiraiya would even try to break out of it. Heh. Jiraiya began to giggle, immediately blushing as he was pulled into the genjutsu. He began to reach out, fingers twitching like they were squeezing grapefruits or something. Naruto didn't really want to know. He waited until Jiraiya was really going, huffing out his nose and everything. Then Naruto and one of his Kage Bunshin jump-kicked Jiraiya off the roof and through the window into the Hokage's office, using their chakra-enhanced kick to shatter the illusion. Iruka was muttering under his breath as he flipped back and forth between various folders, jumping between mission requests and hospital reports and team rosters. Finally he leaned back, closing his eyes as he arched his spine, rubbing his eye sockets with the heels of his palms. Guh! He groaned, before slumping back into his seat. Workin' hard or hardly workin'? Enko asked, twirling a kunai as she crossed her legs, sitting on the desk next to him. Iruka flinched, surprised, before relaxing again. It's you startled me there, Enko. Enko smiled, pleased she'd managed to sneak up on him when he had his guard down. Well, I am an infiltration and espionage specialist, after all. I know, Iruka said. He rubbed his face again. Trouble in paradise? Enko asked. Well, we're really stretched thin, Iruka said. The turnaround between missions is too short, it's putting a lot of strain on our people. He waved his hands over the papers in front of him. Since Tsunade mandated a field medic on every team, unless someone gets hit with an instant kill technique they almost always survive, Iruka shrugged. And because field medic training is so demanding, they're usually less skilled than average ninja of their rank, so the rest of the team has to work harder to cover that. Iruka smiled sourly though. But fatality rates are way down, so it's a good change, just a headache for when we're trying to meet our mission obligations. There was a silent pause. Bummer, Enko observed. You didn't pay attention to most of that, did you? Iruka observed, amused. Yeah, I did, Enko protested. Devil's in the details and all that. Enko scowled. Geez, you're still a pretty boring guy to be cooped up worried about this kind of stuff for 3 hours though. 3 hours? Iruka said, frowning. It hasn't been that long. Enko gave him a look. Iruka checked the wall clock and smiled sheepishly. I guess it has. Right, Enko said, rolling her eyes. Anyway, I was wondering what you're doing tonight. Iruka frowned. Well, first I gotta grade some quizzes and then review for lecture tomorrow, and I need to catch up on some financial stuff since the fiscal year ends soon. Enko sighed. That's all? Iruka shrugged. It still needs doing even if you're gonna be sarcastic about it. Enko stood up and began pacing. Privately, Iruka was amused she had sat still this long. I know, Enko said. It's just, I want us to do more things together. It's no fun that you're always buried in work and stuff. She spun and held up her hand. And I know it's all important work and you're needed, but I want to spend more time with you. I know it's selfish and maybe unfair and I'm beginning to ramble, but she deflated a little and frowned, crossing her arms. I dunno what I'm trying to say. Iruka chuckled slightly. I understood anyway. He sighed. Listen, this is the busiest part of the year for me. We're coming up on the end of the semester at the academy, and we're swamped with work at the mission office because of the good weather, and I've been unusually involved in the bookkeeping this year because we're understaffed. Irika smiled lightly. Anko huffed out her breath and leaned against the table next to him. That doesn't exactly make me feel better, you know. Irika shrugged, palms up with his hands spread. Anko rolled her eyes. Yeah? She paused. Listen, though, I'm not really a very patient person. She narrowed her eyes. Don't say anything. Anko waited, almost daring him to speak, before continuing. But I'll wait for you, okay? If you're busy now. I can wait until it's a better time for you. She slid sideways until she was right next to him, and leaned down close to him. But I ain't gonna let you go. Anko leaned in, breathing out into Irika's ear. You're mine now, and I'm not about to let go of something I really want. I see. Tsunade said. Well, the mission went as well as could be expected. Thank you, Hokage-sama. Kurenai said, speaking on teammates' behalf. The fifth paused, looking at the group in front of her. They were pretty beat up, and Shino in particular was looking pretty dejected. He seemed to take failure the hardest of the three, although Kiba was the most outspoken and Hinata the most pathetic about it. Don't worry about it, Tsunade said. She wondered what Naruto would say. He was much better at pepping people up than her. When he became Hokage, the part where he consoled and encouraged teams would probably come naturally to him. Well, she was the one who had to support these three now. You did a good job, Tsunade said. Although the mission wasn't a success, you did an excellent job considering the circumstances. Sometimes things go wrong on missions and you can't do anything about it. You dealt well with an unexpected catastrophe. Obviously, that was when Jiraiya crashed into the Hokage's office through the windows. Forget Neji and Sasuke. Forget Hayashi and his own Minato. Hell, forget even Orochimaru and Sarutobi-sensei. Naruto was the most incredible jutsu genius Konoha had ever produced. That was the thought that crossed Jiraiya's mind as he entered an indistinct purple-blue landscape under a hot pink sky. Jiraiya didn't care about that part. He cared about the incredibly buxom blonde chick pouring sake into the cup in front of him, while another busted chick pressed into his back, messaging his shoulders, and a pair of incredibly well-formed twins pressed in on either side. Jiraiya couldn't hold it in. This was the most extraordinarily awesome superjutsu the Toad Sage had ever witnessed. He couldn't even imagine how many ways he could work this into Ika. He reached for the girl holding the bottle of sake, and she blushed and giggled as he leaned forward. Then the world exploded into pain as a pair of heels smashed into his face, sending him plummeting out of the illusion and off the roof and through a window. Jiraiya recovered and rolled, launching himself to his feet as he struck a pose, an expression of extreme frustration on his face. Bring them back, he roared. Never. Naruto cackled, landing on the ground, holding the notebook. He scowled, and Jiraiya lunged into a shunshin, barely managing to snatch his precious research back before his terrible student shredded it with a Rasengan. And my research too, Jiraiya howled, slamming his fist into Naruto's head. You insufferable little brat, Naruto-kun. Hinata whispered, while Kiba continued to gape. Tsunade scowled. You two better have a damn good reason for interrupting teammates' mission debriefing. Instantly sidetracked, Naruto looked up. You guys had a mission? Great. He smiled at them, rubbing his head while absently kicking Jiraiya in the shin. I hope you guys did awesome, cretin. Jiraiya hissed, chopping Naruto in the shoulder while hopping on one foot. Naruto went down and rolled, lashing out for Jiraiya's good foot but missing. Look who's talking, you old creep. Naruto pointed. Just for that, sexy no jutsu revised. Sexy world, that's the stuff. Jiraiya roared before his eyes glazed over and he started giggling again, waving his hands in front of him in a manner that was both suggestive and somehow incriminating. Naruto, Kurenai said. What did you just do? By the end, she was practically hissing in anger over this abuse of the powers she had taught him. Naruto struck a pose with the left arm crossed under the right arm sticking out straight. Sexy world draws out the user's deepest fantasies. Guaranteed 120% effective on perverts. Tsunade felt her whole forehead throb as that sunk in. You mean it's an even more perverted jutsu? She shouted at him. Wait. Kurenai's voice was glacial. You said this jutsu draws out their fantasies. Does this mean they're providing the visualization, not you? Naruto had to repeat that to himself to figure out what Kurenai meant. Yes? Kurenai closed her eyes. That's autosuggestion. Abruptly, her head snapped up. One of the legendary 3 grails of genjutsu, and you developed it to use for a perverted technique. She seemed to deflate. I don't know to laugh or cry. Well, I use it for other stuff too. Naruto muttered. Wait. Tsunade said. The 3 legendary grails of genjutsu or whatever you said, that sounds familiar, but I can't quite put my finger on what they are. Jiraiya giggled again. And somebody do something about him. Tsunade roared, pointing at Jiraiya. She didn't want to come in grappling range when he was like that. Okay. Naruto said, shrugging. He formed a hand seal. Sexy world revised. Yaoi yaoi kuni. With that, Jiraiya froze, before letting out a blood-curdling, girlish shriek and stumbling backwards. He fell out the crashed-in broken window, and they could hear him hit the ground several stories below with a terrific thud. Naruto-kun, Hinata said, breathy and light. Kiba and Shino simultaneously twisted to look at their heavily blushing teammate in shock before, again in unison, shuddering slightly at the horrifying image Naruto had implied. Right. Swanda said briskly. So, what are these 3 grail things? Kurenai cleared her throat slightly and entered lecturer mode. It said the sage of the 6 paths developed modern ninjutsu and created the modern ninja world, but there were other, equally powerful innovators at that time. One of them was Wako the Deceiver, who developed modern genjutsu. It said she possessed 3 classes of ability that have not yet been matched. Those are the legendary 3 grails of genjutsu that could defeat even the sage of 6 paths. Kurenai glanced at Naruto. One of those was auto-hypnosis, where the target themselves unconsciously provides the imagery of the illusion. Naruto frowned. I just stopped using a Kage Bunshin to guide the illusion and used the target instead. Kurenai nodded. That makes sense. But even Wako probably didn't have enough chakra to use Kage Bunshin as casually as you do. Tsunade cleared her throat. Naturally, this knowledge isn't going to leave this room. With that, she turned to look at each of Kurenai's genin in turn. Hi, Hokage-sama. Shino responded. Man. Kiba shook his head. I don't think anyone would believe me even if I did tell them. Naruto, a super genius at genjutsu? He shook his head. But I won't say anything, Tsunade-heim. Hey! Naruto roared. Kiba-kun! Hinata said, sounding disappointed in her teammate. Naturally we'll keep it a secret if you want us to, Hokage-sama. Good. Tsunade said. She turned to Naruto. That goes triple for you, you loud-mouthed brat, eh? Her harsh words were tempered with a rough affection in her voice. Hi. Naruto muttered. At any rate, if there's nothing further, Tsunade said to teammate, pausing to give them an opportunity to nod, I need to debrief Naruto. You 4 are dismissed. Teammates snapped to attention and saluted. The cave was empty, save the huge statue. It was dark. There was no light cast on the screaming face with the upraised hands, and no light for the 9 eyes in the head of that thing to see by. With a disjointed series of pops, the cave was full. On each of 9 fingers stood a projection of a figure in a cloak. The leader of Akatsuki, the Pain, spoke. Report. No one spoke up immediately. Kakuzu and Haiden were engaging in a slant-eyed staring contest to see who would have to speak, while Itachi stood passively with his eyes closed and Kisame seemed to be staring off into space. After that pause, it was Haiden to spoke, having lost to Kakuzu in a way understood only to them. TCH. The priest said. His voice is gravelly and hoarse. His neck is held together by a brace, fragments of meat half-healed from a raisin gan. We got the 2 tails successfully, but then she was taken back by a goddamn Konoha ninja. Pain scowled, and spoke with a dark tone. You failed me. His anger was projected on them through his chakra, a supernatural pressure that would have killed lesser ninja. But they are not lesser ninja. They are the Akatsuki, the greatest and most terrible criminals Pain could find and bind to his vision. Haiden snorted, looking up at the Pain. Yeah, well, it's your own damn fault, sending us in without enough friggin' intel. Pain's anger grew stronger, focused down on Haiden, squeezing at the dark priest's soul. Haiden has a point, Kakuzu said, to stave off a fight. Maybe we were too lax, but we simply weren't equipped to handle 8 elite jounin. We were lucky that Itachi and Kisame were in the area, otherwise we wouldn't have gotten even as far as we did, and yet, even with their help you failed. Pain scowled, closing his eyes. You disappoint me. This is the power of the greatest ninja on the continent. Soon, he spoke again. And who was this Konoha ninja, who gave you so much trouble? Haiden began a diatribe. Stupid blonde-haired asshole, Uzumaki Naruto. Itachi interrupted, voice soft. The Kyuubi no Jinchuriki, the host of the 9 tails. Pain repeated. I seem to recall that you have already tried and failed to capture him, as well. I am begin to detect a disturbing pattern here. Kisame spoke next. That boy, he said, is interesting. He grinned, a shark-toothed smile that would disturb company less psychotic than this. We've all heard the rumors, of a bridge in the wave country, of the One Tail, of Tsunade and Jiraiya. And now this, he has remarkable talent with genjutsu. That was how he defeated Haiden. Itachi said. It was totally unexpected. He added, the pain arched an eyebrow. To surprise Itachi, to defeat Haiden, it seemed the Nine Tails was going to be a significant challenge, but something bugged him. And where, he asked, were you three when Haiden was attacked by this child? Itachi and Kisame glanced at each other, and Kakuzu looked away, eating. Kisame said, there's a really good taco stand just into the earth country from snow. The pain closed his eyes and lowered his face into his palm. I can't believe it, Kiba said. I just can't believe it. I mean, Naruto? Super good at genjutsu. Kage shook his head. It's like. Kiba shook his head again. I can't even think of anything that compares. It does strain credulity. Shino agreed. But, it seems to be true. Hinata said. I think that I'm not surprised. I always knew Naruto was strong, so I'm not surprised that he found something he's good at. Kiba shook his head. I always knew he was sly as a fox, but, he shook his head again. I just never pictured Naruto as the genjutsu type. I concur. Shino said. He is certainly cunning enough, but he never seemed to have talent in the more delicate aspects of chakra manipulation that genjutsu require. I don't think you're being fair to Naruto. Hinata protested. Further conversation was halted when Kurenai stopped short in front of them, causing Kiba to stumble a bit and look up at his sensei. She was staring into the break room. Kiba looked, and froze as the world as he knew it was changed on him again. Iruka was sitting at a table, attempting to do paperwork. Enko was sitting on the desk next to him, farther from the door, and leaning over until she was practically all over him, talking animatedly. Iruka turned from the forms he was hunched over to retort, and Enko smiled when he spoke. Not a grin, not a smirk, but an honest-to-goodness smile. He turned back to whatever he was doing, and she looked up. When she saw Kurenai standing there, her smile turned possessive and she slowly, clearly, wrapped her arm around Iruka's shoulder. Kurenai, in turn, frowned and started walking again. Dude. Kiba began. What? Shino agreed. Hinata said, shocked herself. Tsunade stared. She could just tell this was going to be the most ridiculous mission debriefing since the last time Naruto had gone on a mission in a foreign country. Say that again. Tsunade prompted. That Sasuke says hi. Naruto repeated. Tsunade allowed her head to collapse onto her desk. Oh no. She muttered. Finally, she sat up. Why don't you start at the beginning? Well, I was training with my Kage Bunshin and you called me to your office, and then, not that far. Tsunade snapped. Start at the beginning of the mission, okay. Naruto frowned for a moment. So I got into town late and ended up staying in the same hotel as the Cloud group, which was good until I ran into the Akatsuki. Oh, Naruto said. By the way, I ran into 4 guys from the Akatsuki, they were really strong. What? Tsunade said. So then I saved Yujito from one of them and brought her back to Kirima, and Asura told me I did a good job, so she let me go. What? Tsunade reiterated. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, Stone and Cloud are becoming allies, but that's okay. Naruto said, waving his hands. Because we're all friends now. With that, Naruto struck Guy's nice guy pose. I'm going to need some sake before I deal with this. Tsunade muttered. Kakashi lazily walked through the halls of the ninja administration building, thumbing through his book. He nodded at Kurenai, readying himself internally for another sermon about his Aika, and was surprised when she didn't even acknowledge him. Whatever. Her students looked pretty out of it too. Speaking of out of it students, he glanced back at Sasuke, and away before the adorable little brat could sense his gaze. Sasuke was acting increasingly worried and distracted. Well, for Sasuke anyway. Mostly he was even more surly and withdrawn than his usual cute self. Also, Kakashi's internal monologue was beginning to sound like Guy. He should probably get that checked by Ibiki or something. Nodding, Kakashi glanced back at his book, reading about the boisterous and sexy adventures of various fictional ninja. Well, he'd let Sasuke stew for a little bit maybe and ask the Hokage about Motoko after the mission debriefing. And on that note, Kakashi opened the door and entered the Hokage's office. Naruto was standing in front of the desk talking while Tsunade was slouching sideways staring incredulously at the blonde genin. And that's when the Tsuchikage said I shouldn't die stupidly so I could become Hokage. Naruto finished. Tsunade dropped her head into her hand, silently messaging her temples. She couldn't even figure out whether to label the mission success or failure now. That was just the first checkbox on the intelligence and accounting form. Yeah, gods above, never mind the paperwork, the meetings she'd have to have with foreign intelligence about this one mission. With that thought, Swanda crumpled down face first onto her desk. We can come back later if now's bad. Kakashi said. No. Swanda said, voice muffled. She raised her head. No, it's just that Naruto did completely the opposite of what he was supposed to do on his last mission. Here she paused to glare at the protesting genin. But he seems to have succeeded anyway. Well, our mission was basically a success. Kakashi said. But there was a big, fight and we had to leave. Yes, the Akatsuki. Tsunade said, glancing at Naruto again. I'm aware. You had a mission, Naruto? Sakura asked. Sure did. Naruto roared. His hands entered a seal, and there was a pop of smoke. Motoko smiled, and winked at Sakura. Sorry I didn't let you know, Sakura-chan. Motoko said, winking. Then, she continued in Naruto's voice. But I needed to test my abilities. Oh no. Kakashi thought, turning to look at Sasuke. Just oh no. What? Inner Sakura said, jaw dropped. Seriously, what? Sasuke stood gaping. His hands hung slack at his sides. His mouth opened as his head cocked to the side and his left eyebrow seemed to collapse over his eye. His jaw worked, and then finally shut. The snap was the only noise he had made. Sasuke? Naruto asked. Is something wrong? Sasuke flinched, dropping into a crouch as he abruptly flung his arm up to point at Naruto as Motoko. You! He hissed. I can't, it's… Ga. Sasuke flung his hands up to grab at his hair, and he flailed back and forth for a bit while gnashing his teeth. Ga. He repeated, before storming out of the room. Tsunade snickered. What just happened? Naruto asked as he dispelled the illusion, pointing after Sasuke. Then, Sakura realized something very horrifying. I lost to Naruto. She seethed. Tsunade was outright laughing now. Naruto backed up, worried Sakura was going to deck him. I lost Sasuke to Naruto. Sakura repeated, glaring at the orange boy. Naruto, he just shrugged helplessly, knowing if he said anything he'd get decked. Sakura shook her head once more, and stumbled out of the room in a daze. Naruto and Kakashi stood by silently. Tsunade was still laughing. Okay, I have no idea what just happened, Naruto said. Seriously, what just happened? Kakashi stared at his student. He couldn't tell if Naruto was having him on. Do you really not know, Naruto? Would I ask if I didn't? Naruto said, crossing his arms and pouting. Apparently not, Kakashi said to himself. Okay, so… Sasuke had a crush on Motoko and Sakura was frustrated because Sasuke was interested in a girl that wasn't her. Naruto repeated that to himself. Okay, I know I'm not as smart as you, Kakashi-sensei, but I don't think I'm going to fall for that one. Kakashi honestly had no idea how to handle this anymore. I wasn't joking, Naruto, but that doesn't make sense, Naruto said. I mean, isn't Sasuke, gay? Even Tsunade was dumbstruck by that. What? Kakashi finally said. I'm not making this up. Naruto protested. Naruto, Kakashi said. Why would you even think that? Well, there was this one time when we were 9 and Naruto began. On second thought, I don't want to know after all, Kakashi said, cutting off his student. And, you never said anything about this? Well, it's not like it matters, Naruto said. I mean, I'm not going to stop being his friend over it. I think what Kakashi is driving at, Tsunade said, is that Sasuke is straight. Nah, Naruto said, shaking his head. He paused, frowning. Really? Really? Kakashi said. This conversation was profoundly out of his depth. Holy mackerel, Naruto said. Why didn't anyone tell me? Kakashi shrugged. I think we kinda, assumed you knew. He paused. It's not something you should need people to tell you. Whoa, Naruto said. Maybe you should go talk to Sasuke, Tsunade suggested. Yeah, I guess, Naruto said, walking out of the room. Once he was gone, Kakashi turned to his boss. I don't think that was such a good idea, Tsunade snorted. Then she doubled over laughing. Kakashi considered. Well, it was pretty funny. Tsunade, still inarticulate with laughter, held up the crystal ball that the third had developed for long-range clairvoyance jutsu. This, she finally gasped out, is gonna be gold. Sasuke sat at the end of the dock on the big pond in the Uchiha district. His eyes were glazed over as he stared out across the water. Uchiha Sasuke was seriously contemplating suicide for the first time in his life. or non-Mangekyo-related friend murder. He thought maybe both. Hey! Naruto said. Sasuke's head whipped around. He glared at Naruto. You! He seethed. Naruto didn't flinch, and steadily met his rival's eyes. Yeah, Sasuke grunted, and stood, never breaking eye contact with Naruto, even as the pupils split and the iris reddened as the Sharingan activated. You! Me! Now, and before Naruto could mention that hey he was right, Sasuke was gay, he was getting punched in the face. Oh it's on! Naruto roared before falling into the pond. The wind screamed around the mountain crags, blowing powdered snow around beneath the pale blue sky. There was nothing alive within sight, not a sprig of grass of a stunted tree, only steep rocks and the smooth, white drifts of snow. Grunting, Ursura hauled herself up the side of the mountain, fingers digging into the sides of the rocks as she hoisted herself higher, ever higher. She cursed as the tiny ledge beneath her right foot gave way, and she slipped, hanging from the tenuous grips of her fingers. But she persevered, and began hauling herself up again. Finally, she reached the top, an abrupt end to the mountain, and pulled herself up over the side. It was not a cave or a ledge. The top of the mountain was a smooth, level expanse, lightly grooved from wind erosion. Generations ago, someone had just scraped the top off the mountain using kinjutsu, leaving this flattened place as a reminder. Dominating the expanse was a huge bear, so gray it was almost white, sitting in the lotus position on a ratty old mat. One eye was gone, a ragged scar going from above his left eyebrow, down through the ruined right eye socket, and continuing until it reached the muzzle. The other was closed in meditation. The elder and sage of the bear clan, the great Magyar Kage, Ursura kneeled before him, and waited. Soon he spoke. Sachikage-sama, Kabudano. Ursura greeted. I have come before you with a request. Long has it been, since you struggled up the mountain to come before us. Kage mused. In all that time, you have been a friend and ally to our clan. Finally, the huge bear opened his eye. What is it you seek, child? More power. Ursura said. I was shown, recently, that I have begun to stagnate. For the sake of the village, for the sake of your clan, I must gain more strength, more power, enough power to defeat anyone, even the Akatsuki. Kage grumbled. Even isolated on this mountain I have heard whispers, rumors of the brewing threat. Kage stood silently, and loomed over the woman in front of him. Stand, Sachikage. Kage instructed. Today, you begin the harsh training of bear senjutsu. Naruto and Sasuke lay on their backs, staring up at the sky. They were shivering slightly in their still-soaked clothes. As it always seemed to be, it was Naruto who broke the silence. We cool? Sasuke sighed, closing his eyes. Yeah. There was nothing else to be said, and Sasuke was content with that. Naruto wasn't. I feel like we're forgetting something. Sasuke shrugged, even though Naruto couldn't see him. Whatever. Yeah. Naruto said, and they settled into comfortable silence. Sakura stared out across the water, legs dangling down between the rails of the bridge. I lost to Naruto. She muttered, and then she giggled hysterically. It's not that bad. Inner Sakura roared. Naruto cheated with that pervy jutsu. That's not the point. Sakura protested. It's not, even when it's the three of us. Sasuke pays more attention to Naruto. Inner Sakura considered that. That means, Sakura blushed, and a thin line of blood ran down from her left nostril as she considered it. And no, Sakura protested. I'm pretty sure that Sasuke's not like that. Then what does that lame Naruto have that we don't? Inner Sakura shouted. It's not like he's smarter or more skilled than us. All he does is charge into things. But why would Sasuke care more about Naruto than me? Sakura said, grabbing her hair in her hands as she thought about it. Haven't I always tried to help him? Haven't I always been there for him? All Naruto does is fight with him. Yeah. Naruto should stop fighting with Sasuke all the time. Inner Sakura agreed. If he wants someone to fight with, I'll beat Sasuke up instead. No. That's not right, Sakura said, shaking her head. Then she paused, and thought about it. But what the hell, that sounds like it could work. Sakura sighed, dropping her head forward to rest it against the bridge. Why are boys only happy when they're fighting? Sakura frowned, staring at the river going beneath the bridge, thinking that maybe she had never really understood Sasuke at all. So while Sasuke is out of commission with a head cold from hanging out in soaked clothes for hours, Kakashi said, glancing up from his book at Naruto, we can't take any missions. So, free training for a few days, I guess. I'm gonna go eat ramen. Naruto decided, before turning and walking away. Kakashi stared after his wayward student before turning to Sakura, who seemed to want his attention. Yes? He finally prompted. Kakashi-sensei. Sakura began. She paused, uncertain. Kakashi buried his impatience and waited. I want to get stronger. Kakashi considered that. Why? He finally asked. Because. Sakura began. Because I don't understand my teammates at all. She looked to the side. And I think if I got stronger, I might understand them a little better. Kakashi closed his book. It will be hard, I know, Sakura said, squaring her shoulders. Kakashi smiled, eye crinkling as he put his book away. Then, welcome to hell. Naruto whistled as he walked down the street to Ichiraku Ramen. First some lunch, then he would swing by the training grounds and see what was open, maybe see if he knew anyone there. Even after his scuffle with Sasuke yesterday, never mind the A-rank assassination techniques, it was a scuffle in Naruto's mind. He was feeling antsy, he wanted to fight. It wouldn't really be fair to use genjutsu on Lee. Naruto wondered how far he could push it. Niji maybe? Guy's team was always up for a throwdown. Maybe he could even fight Tenin this time. He had wanted to pit his Kage Bunshin against her storm of weapons ever since the Chunin exam. It would be awesome chaos. Naruto was interrupted by a jump kick to the back. Keep your guard up. Jiraiya roared as Naruto dived into a roll and came up with knives. What the hell, Ero Sennin? Naruto shouted, pointing. I thought I said not to call me that in public. Jiraiya seethed, putting Naruto in a headlock. Passerby politely ignored the squabbling pair, but they also gave them a pretty big berth in case it devolved into something the ANBU would have to break up. Again, Naruto seriously contemplated stabbing Jiraiya. He would be kind and put the knives somewhere non-vital. Or maybe the liver. Jiraiya's liver was probably tough enough to handle it. So anyway, Jiraiya said. I was gonna bring this up earlier, but then you got sent on that super great mission. He held up a hand to forestall protesting. Naruto, Jiraiya said seriously. How would you like to go on a 3-year training voyage with me? Naruto paused, and his hand came up to rub his chin as he considered it. I want to get strong, he finally said. Strong enough to become Hokage and protect everyone. He paused, glancing around. And strong enough to win, even against them. Naruto grinned, and met Jiraiya's eyes. When do we leave?